Hey guys, what we're going to take a look at next is how to actually create some custom brushes. You can make a brush really out of anything. I know in older versions of Photoshop you were really restricted on how large you can make a brush. I want to say that you're restricted around 5,000 pixels in either direction, but what I want to do is I want to give you a couple little tips when you're going in and you're actually making brushes. A Photoshop brush is just like a Photoshop image. It is a resolution dependent brush tip. That means the size that you create it is really about the maximum size you want to use it. Once you kind of go above that size, your brush will start to pixelate. When you're making your brushes, you can really do anything. You can go in and you can create it from a selection by making a selection and then filling that selection with a color. A little bit on that, when you're making brushes, if you want a brush to take 100% of whatever swatch color that you choose, you need to make that brush black. So when you're creating the brush, that fill needs to be black. Black is going to equal 100% of whatever color. If you start to make it a value of gray or anything like that, and I choose this red as a color, it's gonna make that brush where it's not filled completely red. It's gonna be at a lower opacity. But just a good rule of thumb, when you're making brush tips, anything that is solid black, when we create it, is going to take 100% of that color. Anything that is a value of gray is going to take a different percentage of that color. So it's basically like you're turning your opacity down in that particular area. If I have this selection and I fill this selection with black, I can go up to edit, I can go down to define brush preset, and what Photoshop is going to do is it's going to read the black in that area. Anything that's white it's going to see as transparent and will not make that area part of my brush. So I see that this is going to be a 998 pixel brush. I can give it a name, whatever I want to do, click OK. This is now a new brush tip. It's going to be in the bottom of the brushes panel. And this is my new tip. I can make it smaller. I can make it larger, but it will start to pixelate a little bit. You can usually fudge it just a little. But you can go in like we looked at in the last video, and you can make all kind of changes. You can change its shape, you can change its angle, you can change its roundness, you can change its spacing, you can go in and work with the shape dynamic of it, minimum diameter, you can scatter it. So these are all things that we looked at in our last video, and you can go in and do really whatever you want to do with this particular brush. Now when I'm making brushes, I will usually start off with a blank layer, and you can go in with black, and you can just go in and you can make any shape. I'm just painting this with black, and then I can go in and say edit, define brush preset, and I can make this a brush. Click OK, go in, I can use my dynamics that I have up here, and I can really dig in on this brush. Go grab another color, whatever it may be. So you can spend as much time working with this as you want to and go in and get a lot of really cool stuff. A couple other things that you can do that are usually fun is I like to take an image and go up to image adjustments, and then I'm going to go down here to threshold. Threshold's going to make something completely black or completely white, and I can use this as a way to go in and find just specific areas. Let's say I like this area right here. I can go in and just click OK. I'm going to invert my image. I'm going to go grab my lasso tool, and I'm just going to make a selection around this. Now without this selection, when I create a custom brush, it's going to make everything part of this brush. with this selection, it's only going to identify this area and the black areas in this area inside of this selection as the brush tip. So now I can go to edit, define brush preset. It's going to see this as a brush. I can click OK, and then when I go back, this is my new brush that I can use. Turn down its size. Again, change any of its settings. And you can really start to dig in and make all different types of brushes like that. Go find another area or whatever and make that a brush tip as well. So play around with this. In the next demo, we're going to look at a couple of different tips on how you can use some different ways of digital illustration and whatnot, and use some of these brush tips inside of your art.